Okay, so today I had a great day in terms of eating, sticking to the diet, um, and just being consistent. It's been almost 4 weeks now, and I'm really getting to the point where it's becoming quite normal and quite, I would say, not easy, but I'm not thinking about what I need to eat. It's kind of very like, oh yeah, it's lunchtime, so I'm gonna have my salad and my cauliflower and broccoli veggies, and maybe a bit of mushroom, and my protein shake. It's getting to that point where I don't notice myself craving the things that I used to crave because I was eating really anything that I felt like eating. I kind of got to this point where every time I would have a thought about eating something that I knew that I shouldn't, it became this mental battle of trying to unconvince myself that I shouldn't eat the pizza or the burger or the whatever. It just became a lot of mental effort. And what I've noticed recently, the last 4 weeks, is I don't have that mental effort. I'm not fighting myself anymore because I just automatically want to eat the right stuff. I think that's probably because there's some form of a habit starting to sink in a little bit, which is really exciting because I've never had that before. My my habits have always been the complete opposite of what I'm eating now. So that's kind of interesting and exciting. The other thing is how I'm responding to the weight loss. So, because I'm seeing consistent losses in weight, definitely week to week, but sometimes from one day to the next, there's a little bit of a loss of weight, right? So that's quite motivating for me. Finding it very motivating to stand on that scale. Even stepping up to the scale, there's no anxiety. It's more excitement than anxiety to step on the scale because I know that I've been sticking to this diet pretty much 100%. And so I know that there's going to be a loss. It's just a matter of how much. So that's super exciting, right? And so that kind of leads me into what I want to talk about, which is something that's been on my mind for a long time, but I've kind of taken the time to articulate it a bit better. So this idea of the voice in your head. So for those of you who are thinking, what voice in my head? If you just be quiet for a second and you just listen, there's a voice in your head. It may even be the voice that's saying, what voice? That's the voice. That's the voice I'm talking about. That voice, for some people, I think some people think that it's you. That voice is you. Look, it could be, right? I don't know. But what I know about the voice in my head is it can't really be me because I don't have any control over it. I have no way of predicting what it's going to say next. Sometimes I do, but it's rare, right? Most of the time, it'll just say all kinds of things, and I have no way of controlling it. There's times when I want to turn it off and I can't. Oftentimes, when I'm trying to go to bed, that voice in my head keeps talking to me when I don't want it to. I'm trying to sleep. So I think the conclusion that I'm drawing from this is that that voice in my head, that voice in your head, isn't exactly you. In a way, it can't be because you're not really controlling it. Sometimes I find that I can have, I don't know, almost a weird conversation with the voice in my head. It'll say something and then I don't know what that means, but I will say something back and then it'll respond and there's like a back and forth. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. I encourage you to pause this video and just sit there for like 15 or 20 seconds or however long you can handle and just observe the voice in your head. If you can do that for more than like a minute, I think you're on the way to meditation, which I'm not an expert in that. I've tried it once or twice, but I'm certainly not an expert. But that's my understanding. So anyway, why am I bringing this up? Why the voice in your head? So, you may have heard me talk about in some other videos this idea of me wanting to eat something that I shouldn't, and that idea, that desire to eat something sugary or carby or fried or something, it usually starts from the voice in my head. When I really sat down and thought about it, I realized that there'll be times, I think I've spoken about this before, but I was driving home one day from work and I had planned to get home, go to the gym, have a healthy meal, just stick to the diet. And on the way home, it was literally like 1 second I was playing through in my head, okay, I'm going to get home, I'm going to get changed in my gym clothes, I'm going to go to the gym, blah, 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 just like walking through that whole thing. And then in the next second, I heard the voice in my head say, yeah, but we're just going past that awesome pizza place. And it's the one that does the bases that are really fluffy, like thin, but kind of not super thin, kind of this fluffy pizza base with this super garlicky sauce. I love barbecue or tomato pizza base sauces that have a lot of garlic in them. I don't know what it is, but it just lights my brain on fire. So we're just going past that place. They're really cheap. They're super cheap. Like for Sydney prices, they're super cheap. They should be twice the price. Maybe I can go past there and just grab one or have a couple of slices or something, Let's see. Let's just go and have a look. That voice in my head just popped in out of nowhere. Now, I think what I'm trying to get at with this whole thing is that the voice in your head, it's always there, right? Like, sometimes it says some weird things. Sometimes it says some very judgmental things about other people and about yourself and stuff. But what I've found very interesting is if I compare the voice in my head now, roughly 4 weeks into this diet, versus what it was like, say, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, 6 months ago, it's almost like its personality has changed. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there was really a sense of, prior to sticking to this diet, there was really a sense of I had to fight that voice in my head. I really did have to unconvince myself to order that pizza on the way home from work. Now, it's almost like the personality of the voice in my head has completely changed. It doesn't really suggest those kinds of things to eat anymore. The voice in my head does these days tell me, hey, don't forget to chop up those veggies because you're going to have to eat them in a couple of hours. Or don't forget to marinate that piece of meat because we're going to eat that for dinner tonight. So for those of you out there who know what I'm talking about when it comes to fighting yourself in your head, fighting the voice in your head, fighting yourself, unconvincing yourself of doing something that you shouldn't, I want to say that there is some hope there because I've noticed personally a change in that voice in my head. I always thought that voice in my head is a particular way and it suggests bad things all the time and I'll just have to live with that. I'll just have to deal with that. But it doesn't seem to be the case. So I don't know if that's helpful for anyone, but that's my experience, and I feel it's quite empowering to know that it's almost like the voice in my head is responding to my actions, you know? In the beginning, it was obviously a little bit harder because I felt like I had to fight it a little bit in the beginning. But at the same time, I think once I'd strung 2 or 3 days in a row of just eating properly, it did start to shift a little bit. But after a week or 2 weeks, certainly, of eating cleanly and sticking to, what I'd committed to, it started to materially change the personality of the voice in my head. So, look, in conclusion, if you've never heard of this idea, if you've never thought about the voice in your head, take this as a cue to start to just notice it. Oftentimes, if you haven't noticed it in the past, it can be hard to break out of it. It's like that idea of a fish doesn't know that it's in water, right? It doesn't know. It's just water is not a thing that it's aware of. So similar to this, if you've never come across this idea before, if you've never observed the voice in your head, if you've never mentally separated yourself from the voice in your head, then I invite you to start to just notice it. That's the beginning. As soon as you start to notice it, this whole world will open up of, that's okay. That is something that's not quite me, but it kind of is, but it's also separate to me. There's a whole interesting journey that you're going to go down around that. For those of you who are familiar, like me, I have heard of people talk about this idea before. It's a good reminder for you and me that voice is always there. It's not fixed, and it can say some messed up stuff sometimes, but ultimately it can change. And what I've noticed, I mean, I'm not an expert in this stuff, but what I've noticed is that it can kind of follow, it can be influenced by what you do. I mean, it sounds obvious now that I say it, but I guess this is more of a reminder for me that it is heavily influenced by what you do. Maybe if it's even heavily influenced by what you eat. If the nutritional value of the food you're eating goes up, maybe that improves it. It could be that because I was eating such crap before, just fueling, I don't know, my brain or my conscious or subconscious, just fueling that with bad food, could be what caused it to, get me to eat bad stuff in the first place. I don't know. It's a chicken and egg thing. I don't know. But I think it's something that's worth thinking about. And for those of you who are really struggling with this whole idea of whatever it is, sticking to the diet, sticking to exercise, trying to lose weight, whatever part of that journey you're on and whatever part of that is important to you, just notice that I think that the voice in your head plays a huge role, and just being present to it at the very least makes a big difference. But also knowing that it can change and it's not a fixed way is also, I think, quite a hopeful thing. It certainly has been for me. So thanks again for watching. As you probably know from the last videos, I mentioned this channel, these videos, primarily they started out as being a way for me to keep myself accountable for going on this journey. I keep referring to this journey and what I'm doing, and I have to make a video to really explain this. So that's something I'm working on. But just in a nutshell, I'm on a particular diet. I'm eating lots of salad, lots of veggies, protein shakes, over 2 liters of water a day, and a bunch of basic supplements. But look, all that stuff is all kind of details. Here's the important thing. For probably only the second time in my life, I'm actually sticking to a diet, like actually sticking to it. So I said that I would eat veggies and salad for lunch and dinner, and I'm doing that. I said that I would have a small bit of protein every night for dinner, a small bit of meat. I'm doing that. I said I have 3 protein shakes a day, take supplements, water, all this kind of stuff, do some light exercise. I'm actually doing that stuff every day. That's what I mean by I'm really sticking to it. I'm not like compromising and, kind of sticking to it here and not there. And I'm just treating myself like I am an addict of food, because I am. I mean, it's something I had to deal with. I actually am an addict of specifically carbs and sugar. I just can't. It's like heroin for me. So I'm just treating it like that and just being as clean as possible. And for the first time, I'm actually sticking to that, and it seems to be working. So I'm just documenting that and recording these videos to help me stay on track. So thanks so much for watching and listening. I'll have another one for you soon. See you in the next one.